Hello, this is Dr. Gratu Orloff. I am the founder of the Gratu Orloff Inspirational Network, which is headquartered here at the Hotel Orloff here in Rural Retreat, Virginia. We're a 365-day-a-year hotel and a monster museum. And this is the comic book room here. Would I call myself a comic book collector? Yes. Am I proud? Well, I love comic books. I love old comic books. I don't know that I'm proud to be associated with comic book collectors overall or the comic book community. Elementary school, I knew a few other kids that collected comics. They were fun to hang out with. And a few other kids in high school I knew. In college, I mostly hung around people that were into horror movies and science fiction, but and monsters, they were very little into comic books. Anyway, I haven't ever really hung out much with comic book collectors. I'd go into comic stores and I'd see people around me that I assume would be labeled comic book collectors, but I kind of found them, some of these people that hang out in comic stores, they were kind of horrifying, I suppose you would say. It was horrifying. But I wanted, I fell in love with comic books as a kid, and when I was about to be in 6th grade, I found this at the local bookstore, the Overstreet Price Guide, and I read it for an entire summer, the summer of 1976. I memorized the pages of this, all these Golden Age comics, and I thought, someday I'll have a lot of these comics, and that was a dream. But, how do you really become a comic book collector? I taught myself the Jim Steranko history of comics, from looking at the price guide, from just looking at comics around me, from my older brothers who read comics in the 1960s, and I was buying comics from about 1969, 1970 on. It was, I was self-taught. Hobbies, when you get into a hobby, like say model railroading, there's a magazine, Model Railroader. You read that magazine and you see the pictures of the train layouts, and you learn tricks and things, and maybe your granddad collected Lionel trains, or your dad, there were people that kind of steer you into it. The local hobby store, the guy that runs it is really into trains and teaches this is the way it used to be. But nowadays, in the world of the internet, if you become interested in comics, like a lot of people did comics have always been hated by normal people. They would make fun of us for reading comics. But then this phenomenon happened where that first Iron Man movie came out with Robert Downey Jr., and normal people loved it. It was just, a lot of them probably had no idea Iron Man was even a comic book. It was just a really cool movie, and it was a legitimately great movie. And then Marvel started making all these other movies that were really good based on Marvel characters. And then they all started to interweave and start connecting with each other. And that must have blown the minds of all these normal people. And then they started to, wow, this is interesting. I'd like to buy some of these comic books. And then the pandemic happened, and the government started sending free money to people. Some people desperately needed that money. Some people didn't. And they were just getting free checks for a couple $1,000s. And they said, I'm going to buy some of these comic books because I've read somewhere that they become more valuable when you buy them. So they started collecting. And the only way they could really find out the tips and tricks and how to collect comics is to go on YouTube, and people on YouTube would tell them how to collect, and a lot of them were the same age as them. And they said, well, the thing to do, these are the comics you should collect. And once you get them, you just put them in plastic. You have them sealed in plastic, and then they're going to go way up in value. And that's how these people thought, well, okay, I love these movies. I want to collect. They listen to other people the same age as them. There were a few older collectors on YouTube, but, you know, if you're 25, 30 years old, you want to watch some old person on YouTube telling you that, you know, about comics, a lot of times that would be no. And I just don't think it's ever been a very welcoming hobby. I'm going to turn down these commercials for a little bit. Usually they cheer me up, but hold on. Let me turn this down just slightly. Okay, guys. What causes me to make this video is the phenomenon of, I guess I would call him a young man named Stiggy Goose. I feel weird saying that, but, you know, I'm 59, and I think Stiggy Goose mentioned he was born around the turn of the century, which to me always meant 1900, but the turn of the century now means 2000. So I think he was probably born when I was in my mid-30s, so I'm easily old enough to be his father. And from what he said, I'm just going to give you my take on Stiggy Goose. He, as a young teenager, he got into collecting or buying Beanie Babies because he saw that they were going up in value. And then he knew his father had a bunch of comics from the 1960s. During the pandemic or right before it, he got all these comics, like, I don't know, I think he said 5 or 6 boxes of 60s comics from his dad, and became really interested in collecting comics. Now, he stated he watched videos, and I'm pretty sure, I hate to say what someone else is thinking, but he started learning how to what books to buy, and he's made a video that said, I was buying books just to make other people like me, and he's not into the books. A lot of the books he was buying, he's not really into them. He doesn't really find them that interesting. And so he's found the comics that he really likes and started buying those. But he talks about making the mistake of getting a lot of comics slabbed, and then you can't read them, and it's not satisfying. And that's something that YouTube tells you that you should do as a collector. And it shames you for not doing it, because they call comics that aren't slabbed by CGC, they call them, what do they call them? They call them raw comics, which just makes them sound like raw meat, something that's raw. It's a negative connotation to that word. So whereas something that's encased in this sleek plastic is just wonderful, and you can get a 9.8 and it's worth so much more than a 9.6, and that's just and if you listen to these people, that's the way to collect comics, yeah, you start to become disenchanted with it. But if you watch Stiggy Goose's videos, you can see that he starts. The first video I became aware of, it was a video he put up. He says, I was kicked out of 2 comic stores in one day. And he went into a comic store with a camera strapped to his chest, and it offended the comic store owner. And I guess you should ask permission first, but it's not that big a sin. But the owner was not really thrilled with him, and I think he went, I don't know if it's the first store or the second store, he says, well, where are all your key issues? And the owner of the comic store said, well, you just have to look, they're scattered in. And then he said, why aren't they all separated? And that, as you know, watching that video, I thought, boy, that's obnoxious. But he was told by the people on YouTube that that's the way it should be, that key issues are what people collect, not the run fillers, not the ones that aren't key or important issues. So he wanted them separated, just like maybe if you're collecting Beanie Babies, the ones that are more valuable should be up in a certain case. So if I have a short amount of time going into a store, okay, where are your real valuable Beanie Babies? And I don't want to have to go through bins of all these. Now you think, well, Beanie Babies, what a lame thing to collect. Well, I don't know that he was into Beanie Babies. He was into making money. And I mean, that's called capitalism. That's what our country's founded on. So I don't know that that's a sin. He was buying stuff that people thought was I was older. I was aware when Beanie Babies were around that was a laughable thing, that they were not going to hold their value. But I was older. He was, a kid, didn't know. And I guess I was right on that. Doesn't matter. So he starts buying comics. And what I see is it looks like he became disenchanted with all that he was being taught. He became disenchanted with people telling him he should slab comics, people telling him what comics he should like. Now, I personally love the Silver Age Marvel because he held up some Silver Age Fantastic Fours and Silver Age, Spider-Mans, and said, I don't really like these. These are like they were written for kids. Yes, because if you're older, you know that comic books are a medium for kids. But he's more into the more adult graphic novel stuff, like Mouse by Art Spiegelman and the more mature stuff that comes out today. Me, I'm just into this stuff that was made for kids back in the 50s, 60s, and early 70s. That's my time period. I'd be into the stuff from the 40s, I just can't afford it. So that's just my, so I could look at it and it's like, oh my gosh, she disagrees with me about Silver Age comics. I don't like, no, people are entitled to their own opinion. So he doesn't like the Silver Age comics for the most part. Thinks they're written in a juvenile way. I'm not going to condemn him for that. I'm not going to condemn him for buying Beanie Babies and trying to make money, because that is how the country was built. So that's capitalism. I'm not going to knock him for that. And then he more recently has gone on a crusade to kind of troll in a somewhat gentle way the comic book community, where he's been showing little clips or pictures of the people in the comic book community. I hate that word community. Most people do that are of my political viewpoint. When you're in the middle of a Marxist takeover of the country and it's real obvious, you start becoming aware whenever you hear their terminology being foisted on you, like community and forward, moving forward, moving forward. Every time you hear that, you hear it every day, you realize, oh, those are all words injected into our vocabulary by people that are trying to destroy our country. Anyway, besides the point, you're going to get offended by my politics. Well, anyway. So I've been enjoying some things he says kind of, that pisses me off, but that's fun. See, all these people getting really pissed off by Stiggy Goose are comic book collectors, but they're also people that have watched thousands of hours of pro wrestling. And then when they see pro wrestling in real life, they don't recognize it. They don't recognize that you're being trolled, that he's playing the bad guy wrestler. And because he doesn't laugh after everything he says to let you know that it's a joke and let you in on the joke, and since you don't have, a lot of you in the comic book community don't have much of a sense of humor, I've learned that, you get really angry and pissed off. His sense of humor is very dry. And you watch enough of it, you realize, okay, so he did a whole video where he roasted, I don't know, about 50 different people in the comic book community. Most of the channels I didn't know. Some of them I've seen a little bit of, some I've seen more of. I think he, yeah. But anyway, he sat there with his wife, and and that's interesting way to do it. You know, you sit there with someone that's not into comic books that much, but, you know, it's like, well, what do you think of this person? Just looking at this picture, what do you think of them? Oh, I think that person looks like they'd be really funny. And then he says, actually, person's very serious. There were only a couple of moments. Like one guy, he said, this guy is very effeminate or something. And he talks about the way the guy talked in an effeminate way. And I thought, well, that might be trolling a little bit too far. And I think Comic Collector Geek, you know, has very dark eyes, and they were saying, well, it looks like he's sold his soul to the devil for all those comic books, because look, you know, that could hurt someone's feelings, I guess, because, you know, you can't really change how you look, you know. That, I mean, you can change your hairstyle, but you can't change your eyes, or, you know, all that stuff. So that there were a few moments that I thought, but anyway, the whole thing got pulled down because I think it was one person that was one of the people being roasted, got really offended. Anyway, he's put it back up with several people edited out because, okay, so it's a hard thing because it's like he's playing the bad guy wrestler, and it's like, oh, I want to hate him because he's the bad guy wrestler. But then on the other hand, well, the bad guy wrestlers make the coolest action figures, right? And they have the coolest lines, and they're, you know, the bad guys in a lot of movies are more interesting than the heroes if they're done right, you know. And he's playing that role. Now, here's the thing. My wife is a very good, very astute judge of character, and she's warned me about people and said, no, trust that person. And she turned out to be right, and I said, no, that can't be right. This person's a good, very nice, religious person, whatever. No. And she says, no, don't trust. And then she turns out to be right. She has seen a few of these Sticky Goose videos that I have on while she's doing whatever, and she says, no, that guy is okay. She can see. And another thing, when he brings his wife on, if you think Stiggy Goose is this evil villain, this nasty, horrible snake, you see his wife, she's a genuinely, wonderfully nice person. And the way that she looks at him and the way he looks at her with such adoration, they're constantly looking at each other. I pick up on that. If someone that nice loves this guy, the guy is probably really a nice guy playing a role, because she wouldn't be with him if, she doesn't, she's obviously very intelligent. She's an attorney. She can, you know. So that's a sign. What has he done lately? Oh, well, now he's like, he's starting to take on different aspects of the comic book YouTube world. There are these, I don't know the subscriber ratio, but there's this guy, Comic Book Tom. Apparently he's going to be interviewing him in a few weeks. He just announced that. Comic Book Tom is this real young guy that is a comic book influencer, and he tells you what's hot and what's valuable every few days. And he's real spastic and moves around a lot and talks quickly, and he will keep the attention span of a young person that needs constant editing. And because then this video, there's no editing. Sticky Goose makes fun of older people that don't edit, but younger audiences, they demand constant edits. There's something about it that makes it more interesting to their minds that are used to looking at video game screens. So in one sentence, there'll be like 4 edits. Like they'll say a few words, there'll be a cut, then they'll say a few more words. It's probably whenever they say they say or they edit that out, and it makes it more interesting to young people, I think. But anyway, I don't edit my videos. And I have no idea why I'm even talking about that. I've lost my train of thought, but it'll come back to me. Oh, okay. He's starting to talk about, oh yeah, Comic Tom. And then there's this guy Jim Mint Collectibles, and he's become burnout with a lot. He rose to the point where YouTube was giving him a lot of money, and then he looked around and realized, I'm not happy with where I'm at with this house that's so, and he's trying to sell his house, downsize, and try to get back to his beginnings with YouTube, and he was one of the people roasted by Sticky Goose, and he kind of, acknowledged Sticky Goose kind of helped me see myself in my, he didn't say bloated ego or anything, but he helped me see things in perspective. So I think, he likes him. Comic Collector Geek made a video saying, hey, it's not, he was not, he's for free speech, he's politically on the correct side, he's, and I think people that criticize Comic Collector Geek, it's more out of jealousy and that he buys everything he wants. But there's nothing wrong with having a lot of money. It's the American dream, right? Or in his case, the Canadian dream. But Sticky Goose has also gone on about older people that are in their 50s and 60s, like me, age 59. He calls them the sticker people because they do shows where they talk to each other and they're in little Brady Bunch squares, Hollywood squares kind of, and they talk to each other like a Zoom meeting, a StreamYard or whatever. And he said they all just have real low subscriber counts, less than 1,000, which I do. I've never made it to 1,000. I don't think I ever will. But it's great because he really gets to you. He says they're failed YouTube channels. You think, oh man, he's really sticking. But I don't know. And then he talks about the king of the sticker people has about 4,000 subscribers. Oh, I was off anyway. And he calls them sticker people, I guess, because they make T-shirts and stickers advertising their YouTube channel, and then they put stickers on the wall for their friends behind them, kind of like ham radio people used to get the cards in the mail from people they talked to in Australia and New Zealand or wherever. So he's gone after the older crowd. I think the way it is, there's the older people. They're real low. No one really watches them. Like this channel, no one watches it, And then there are up higher. To me, kind of the peak of the older people channels. I mean, well, Captain Strangelove pretty much started it. He may have started comic books on YouTube, period, as back 12, 13 years ago. He may have been the first guy. He may be the Neil Armstrong of comics. I don't know, because I wasn't paying attention that much to YouTube back then, because YouTube could only have like 10 or 15 minute videos back then, so it wasn't that interesting to me. But I think he started it. But then there's the Comic Book Tom, has tons of subscribers, and Jim Mint. But then up on another level is Nerdrotic. I mean, I think he's like the top. And he has political people aspiring politically come on his show, and he does this Friday Night Tights, a long stream on Fridays. And I hear a lot of people talk about him and say, well, it's just so negative. All he does is talk about all this, how all the movies are a bunch of socialist propaganda, and all the comic books are horrible, and it's just, and Star Wars has gone bad, and I just don't want to hear all that negativity. Well, I haven't watched it in a while. I always found him entertaining. Fridays I'm kind of busy because I'm working, and then that's the night my wife's off and we go out I just don't see it. But to me, that's kind of like people in the in 1773, 1774, 1775. Gosh, I wish those guys would just be quiet about the taxes. I'm happy with the king. Yeah, who cares? They're raising the price and the taxes. I just want to like look at my comic books and remember how wonderful it was when I was a child. I don't want to hear about all this. I mean, at this point, if you don't realize the dire state our country is in, I mean, I do comic book streams, talk about monster toys, but I can't stop from every 15 minutes or so saying, yes, you need to vote for Donald Trump. And this is one of the most important things you'll ever do in your life is that vote. You're making history, and I'll probably lose subscribers, but good. I don't want subscribers that would vote for Kamala Harris on this channel, ladies and gentlemen. But anyway, you don't want to hear about politics. Okay, so, you know, this Sticky Goose is above the sticker people, but below the comic book Tom and Jim Mint collectibles, and then Nerdrotic is like up in the stratosphere. As far as comic book type shows or entertainment shows, I don't know. I think that's the way the hierarchy works. But Sticky Goose has started to make these videos and talk about how he's the center of the universe. It's really funny, but people get pissed. They say he's so egotistical. It's just like you just don't get it, man. He says if you do a video about me, it will cause your video to have more views than any video you've ever. Man, I've never had any video. And so he calls it the Sticky Goose effect. Right now, he's real hot. The algorithm's promoting Sticky Goose. So if you say Sticky Goose in your title, you'll get more. He's shown people that have done it how that video is like their most watched video ever. And it's funny, it's true, and it pisses people off because they hate him, and now people are making videos about him. And I guess I'm doing that too. I'm just doing it as an experiment, really. The most viewed videos I've had were me talking about the Forum 303 Mall in Arlington, Texas, and how wonderful my memories are of that mall back in the 70s and 80s. And then, of course, they tore the mall down. And people go to YouTube, my age, people that grew up going to that mall, and they say, well, maybe someone on YouTube has some footage of that mall. I want to remember it. And they go and they only find my two videos I made talking about Forum 303 Mall, so they've had a couple thousand views, which is not much in terms of YouTube. But, and I did one the other day as an experiment, just like this is an experiment, trying the Sticky Goose effect. I did a video the other day and I put Forum 303 Mall in the title and a picture of the Forum 303 Mall saying maybe I can get some of these normal people that grew up in Arlington, Texas to tune into my video and maybe subscribe. It hasn't worked yet, but it might work over the next few years. Of course, I don't know if I'll live that long. But, Sticky Goose made a video the other day and said that everyone collects comics for the money. But I guess that really secretly deep down you're buying these comic books because you know they'll go up in value, and that's the real reason you do it. And that was it was. I mean, he did acknowledge, of course, you love the comics and everything, and the artwork and everything, but you know everybody's got really deep down that mercenary. And it's it's like the expression "money makes the world go round" and all that. And then all these people have made angry videos denouncing him. Sticky Goose is wrong. And so a guy in England named Suddenly Comics made a video, and he said Sticky Goose is wrong. And within 2 minutes of his video, he said, "Well, 50% I'm buying comics for them to go up in value, but the other 50% is just because I love them." And then Stiggy Goose made a video about that guy and said the guy completely proved my point. Now, I'm not a normal person. The comics I bought, I never intend to sell. I'll leave that to whoever comes behind me. My wife will have to she'll have to figure out something, or probably everything will wind up in a dumpster, if it winds up going down past, I don't have any children. I don't know. I've told my wife, okay, if I pass away, these are the people you should contact. One of those people I've since found doesn't really like me very much, but so I said, well, okay, but there's a couple people that are good friends here on YouTube. I don't know anyone locally, but if anything happens to me, contact these people. They'll tell you what's worth something, what isn't. Maybe they'll even buy it from you. But I'm not going to sell anything. Just because I've sold one comic in my life, and it was because I didn't want it around. It's like people burn Ouija boards because they don't want that evil thing in their house. It was a Batman graphic novel called Arkham Asylum, and I didn't like what they were saying about the Joker in it. And you can read that and figure out what that is. I just didn't like it, And I don't sell stuff, man. I was going through Superman comics last night, found there were some 60s Superman comics. I've got 3-4 copies of them. I'm not selling them. I can't do it, man, because that's just how I'm wired, man. And yeah, it's all, for me, it's nostalgic. It's my childhood and everything. Do you see over here, like see that teddy bear with the blue ears? That little fox from a German comic strip? Those are sacred things. I would never. That teddy bear came down from my older brother. He got it in the 1950s. That little fox, that's from some German comic strip. I got that when my family was stationed in Germany. I've had that since I was like 4. Those are like my Woody and Buzz Lightyear. They're just gonna be with me forever. I don't sell stuff. I see people, they go to Half Price Books and sell the yearbook that their mother was in, that graduated during World War II from high school, and they sell it, and you can buy that yearbook for $10, $12. And I'm thinking, why would you sell a yearbook with the pictures of your mom in it? And people don't care. They don't care about the past. They just don't care. I've got cool pictures on the wall downstairs of my mom from the 40s. People would probably buy those just to hang them in their wall and look all antique-y and stuff. But people would sell them. Oh, yeah, I'll sell you that picture of my mom for $20, $30. Who would do that, man? I'm not going to sell you comic books that my mom bought for me when I was sick, when I was 6 years old. That, to me, but that's how I look at comics. But back to Stiggy Goose. He doesn't have, and he stated this, he doesn't have the nostalgic connection with the comics. He got into comics when he was already grown and I think married, and it was something interesting to him because his dad was into comics, but those comics don't have an emotional connection to his childhood. So when I see Stiggy Goose selling his whole Tomb of Dracula and Werewolf by Night collection, I'm thinking, boy, I was buying those books off the spinner rack when I was a kid, and I don't even have all the issues, and I'm jealous. It's like he's selling them because he doesn't like them too much, but he doesn't have a connection. He wasn't buying those in 2nd and 3rd grade. Those are comics that were made almost 30 years before he was born. He doesn't have any connection to them any more than I would have a connection to a childhood connection to a Captain Marvel comic or a Spy Smasher or a Captain Midnight comic from the World War II era. I love those comics, and I look at those comics and I imagine my father reading them, and I think they're beautiful and they're great, but there's not, and I don't know, I'm weird. I have a nostalgic connection to things from before I was born because I almost feel like I was alive then, kind of like General George S. Patton, thought he'd been around before. And it's like, yeah, I bought these comics at some point in a past life. Not that I believe in that, reincarnation, that is. But I just don't know that I think the comic book community is that welcoming to newcomers, and so they have to kind of figure things out on their own. And hopefully CGC will just disappear. I don't know that it will, but I don't like slabbing comics. I like raw comics. I like comics from my time period. And But I got to get over being pissed at people for not liking the exact same comics I like. You know, it's like, you don't like the same cereal I like? Well, you must be a bastard. You don't like Blueberry? You like Fruity Pebbles? Well, you son of a bitch. You know, that's how a lot of people on YouTube, and I actually have been like that, to be honest with you. Anyway, I don't know. You tell me what you think. I enjoy watching his videos. It's like, oh, there's a new Sticky Goose video. Oh, cool. I want to watch that and see what he tears apart next. It just, that's just the way it is, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to start a live stream here in a minute. I'm going to put this video up, and I'm going to see if I get the Sticky Goose effect. I made it short because millennials, or whatever the generation now, like short videos instead of my 3-4 hour extravaganzas. And so I will get on that. And anyway, I, with reservations, think that Sticky Goose is okay, because, and partly just because he offends people that don't have a sense of humor. And that's, of course, tomorrow he might put a video out that offends me, and then I'll change my mind. But for right now, and I know good friends of mine have come out and said that they unsubscribed to him and they just can't stand him, and I understand that, but I'm seeing something great there in his ability to come along and take over and offend everyone and make people run screaming from him. I think he just doesn't care anymore. I guess he just thinks the comic book people have treated him badly and steered him wrong, gave him bad advice, and now he still loves comic books, but he's gonna dish it back to the comic book community. I'm guessing that's what's happening, but I don't really want to speak for him. This is just me psychoanalyzing what I've seen. Anyway, enough of that. See you guys later.